بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Assalamu alaikum. Ahmadi Anjuman Ishayat Islam welcomes you to its daily broadcasts. In these broadcasts, we go through the Holy Quran verse by verse, sometimes word by word, to see what message it has for us. And today it seemed to me that it might be interesting to actually look at the history as well. Because in many things, the Holy Quran refers to the previous people, particularly the Israelites. And we have arrived at verse 50 of the Holy Quran. Before going any further, I want to remind you that the founder of the Ahmadiyya movement, the promised Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, Mahdi Maud, he believed that the Holy Prophet Muhammad was the last prophet after whom no prophet is going to come, old or new. And that he is the Mujaddid of the 14th century, for whom the Holy Prophet used the titles Messiah and Mahdi. And that the Holy Quran is complete, no verse is missing from it. Our non-Ahmadi friends, many of them believe that some verses have been left out of the Holy Quran. And some verses of the Holy Quran have been abrogated or cancelled. He categorically rejected this, saying that the Holy Quran is complete and perfect. He also believed that if a person recites the kalima, no one has the right to call him a non-Muslim. Because the Holy Prophet Muhammad said that if one person reciting the kalima calls another person who recites the kalima a kafir, then the caller is the one who's a heretic. So with that, we turn to the Holy Quran. And as I said, we are looking at verse 50. And today I thought, because this refers to an incident that is found in the Old Testament, I thought it might be interesting to have a look at the Jewish interpretation and see what they think of it. It's a long thing. I'm not going to read all of it, but only parts of it. It's basically, the incident is described in the Old Testament in Exodus 14 and Exodus 15. Sorry about this. I've got a bad dry throat. So rather than cough, I thought I'll take a drink of water. So the Holy Quran says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذ فرقنا بكم البحر فأنجيناكم وأغرقنا آل فرعون وأنتم تنظرون. And when we parted the sea, for you, so we saved you and drowned the people of Pharaoh while you saw. As I explained yesterday, Pharaoh is actually the title, like king, Shahanshah, Caesar, president, and so on. It's not a name. So whoever the Pharaoh was at the time is generally believed to be Ramesses II. So the miracle of the parting of the Red Sea, which in Hebrew is called Qidiyat Yam Suf. It's, as I said, in Exodus books 14 and 15. And this is the Jewish interpretation that people of Israel had been enslaved by Pharaoh. And it's very interesting in reading this that Jews are not supposed to take the word of God, the name of God. And and even in writing, they didn't write the full name, only the consonants. And the result is that now no one knows how to pronounce it. I think the chief rabbi once a year used to pronounce it. But the idea was that our tongues are too dirty to take the holy name of God. But interestingly, although that applied to the real name of God, here, even when using the word God, they've taken the O out and written G and then a slash and then D. Sorry, I just thought I'd bring this to your notice. And in other places where they use Lord, exactly the same thing has been done. Anyway, God saw their suffering and he sent Moses and Aaron to set them free. And then Moses brought 10 plagues and all this kind of thing. And after that, the Pharaoh said, let me get rid of these people. And he said, okay, you can go. And then the Israelites took a circuitous route. The reason for that was that Pharaoh obviously had spies hanging around to see which way they were going. So to confuse the spies, they took this roundabout way. And then they got to the sea. And when they got to the sea, what happened? They're being chased by this army, but they start fighting each other and arguing. Does it sound familiar to you? The world is joining together to kill you, to destroy you. And what are you doing? Rather than facing the world, you're arguing with each other. The world, humanity hasn't changed all that much in so many thousands of years. So there were those who said, let's throw ourselves into the sea and die. And then the second group said, let's go back. The third group said, no, we'll fight and either win or perish. I find that a little hard to believe, because later on when they were in Palestine and they were asked to fight to get the promised land, they said, you and your God go and fight the people who live there. You promised us the promised land. You didn't say we had to fight. And the fourth camp advocated, let's pray to God. Okay? So what Moses did was, he said, fear not, stand by and see the salvation of God, and he will show you today. For as you have seen Egypt this day, you shall not see them again forever. God shall fight for you, and you will be silent. So then God then told Moses to to raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and split it, which is what Moses did. And as they were being chased by the Pharaoh's army, the Jewish tradition has it that there was a pillar of cloud, which was the angel Michael, that sort of led people through the desert and wrapped itself round them for their protection, so that Egyptians couldn't fire arrows at them and so on. And a fire was lit for the night, to illuminate the night for the people of Israel, so that they could see where they were going. Anyway, so the sea parted, and seeing their prey in the middle of the sea, the Egyptians and their horses rushed in behind them, still in hot pursuit. As morning approached, God turned his attention towards the Egyptians, using the cloud and the fire to confuse them and emanate a painful heat. As the wheels came off the chariots and the horses struggled in the boiling muck, the Egyptians were cast into complete turmoil. Then Moses, on God's command, Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and it returned to its normal state. And Egyptians tried to flee, but they were drowned and so on. And then there are, and what happened was that songs were written in gratitude. There's song of Az Yashir, the song at sea, which is a part of the daily Jewish service, etc., etc. But there are also many oddities which can't be explained, because we are told that the biblical verses tell us that the seabed was dry, and the sages add that the sea walls grew fruit and spouted fresh water for the travelers. None of these stories, myths, are in the Holy Quran. So the Exodus 15 is Song of the Sea, and as I said, it's a part of the daily service when Jews thank God for coming to their aid and saving them from Pharaoh's tyranny. Now, what was this parting of the sea? Oh, you see, the other difficulty that arises is that here it says that the seabed was dry, and sages add that sea walls grew fruit and so on. But earlier on, we had that as the wheels came off the chariots and the horses struggled in the boiling muck. So it was muddy. And at the same time, it was dry. But I guess you would say it's a miracle. So the point I want to make is, please, this is nowhere in the Quran or Islamic tradition. I'm just explaining it to you because this is what the Holy Quran, this incident in general terms, it is what the Holy Quran refers to. And Muslims have this favorite habit of taking something that Quran generally mentions in few words, and taking things from other religions and building a whole castle or palace or structure on them. So, and yeah. Now, where was this? Where did this actually happen? Now we know that it is said that it was the Red Sea that was parted. Now, unfortunately, that can't be right, because the original term, the original place in Hebrew that is referred to. Now, one thing I must mention about Hebrew is that there is a great difference between the ancient Hebrew in which the Old Testament was written and the modern Hebrew that you see on television and other places. They look similar, but they're not. Anyway, the place is called Yam Suf, and this has been traditionally thought to refer to the saltwater inlet located between Africa and the Arabian Peninsula, known in English as the Red Sea. Okay? Now, the difficulty is that this is a mistranslation from Hebrew, from the Greek, because the word, the Hebrew suf never means red, but it means reed, not R-E-A-D, R-E-E-D. Reeds are plants and trees and grasses and things that grow in water, and it can be deep water. If you doubt this, go to Florida and have a look at Everglades, and you will see what I mean. You can't just walk into these Everglades. I mean, apart from the fact that they're full of crocodiles and things which will bite your legs off, they are quite deep. So this mistranslation made reads into red, and the location changed. And here I've got a note that reeds tolerant of salt water flourish in the shallow string of lakes extended from Suez north to the Mediterranean Sea. So rather than this being southwards, this suggests that the crossing was much further north. And well, there you are. You don't have to go as far as Florida to see kind of Everglades. You can go to Egypt and see them, which could be a lot cheaper for you. Now, so that's one thing, that the place is incorrect. The other thing is what actually happened. Of course, religious people, Muslims and Jews and Christians, would say, well, it was a miracle from God. And by miracle, they mean that some event that is above the natural laws of physics and science and so on took place. Others say, well, there is some scientific explanation. And the miracle is the fact that Hazrat Musa arrived at that spot at that particular time when this was going to happen. That's the miracle. If he'd arrived there a day late, nothing like this would have happened. If he'd arrived a day early, nothing like this was going to happen. One person whose name I failed to note, he says that it was a mirage. As you know, on hot days, when you look down the motorway if you're driving, sometimes it looks to you as if the surface is wet. But when you get to that point, you find that that is not so. The surface is dry. And this happens in deserts as well. It looks to people as if there is water somewhere, not just water, you know, trees and things as well. And when they get there, there is nothing. It's all caused by bending, the air bending and refraction and so on, but that's not our topic. So one guy says, well, what was happening was it was a double mirage. The Egyptians saw this mirage where the Israelites were. And it looked to them that Israelites, as they were fleeing, were going down into water. And they thought, they're going to drown. So what's the point of chasing? Let's go back. And the Israelites turned round and saw the Egyptians. And Israelites saw a mirage at the place where Egyptians were, and it looked to them like that place had water. And Egyptians were going away, and they thought that Egyptians were drowning. Neither were dying. But I just included that for the sake of completion. I mean, I don't accept that. For one reason, it's because the Quran says, and when we parted the sea, we saved you and drowned the people of Pharaoh. So that's enough. But I've just included that to show that how people have tried to explain this in a rational way. Another explanation is, this is by Carl Drews, who's a researcher at the National Center for Atmospheric Research in the US, that it was a real historical occurrence, namely, but it was a natural phenomena known as wind setdown. And it has been observed to affect bodies of water. So basically what happens is that very strong wind can push back water. And this is what happens. And people have gone on and done research to try and explain these things. There were two Russian scientists who published a paper in 2004. Their names were Norm Wolzinger. He was a senior researcher at St. Petersburg's Institute of Oceanography, and Alexei Androsov, who was his colleague based in Hamburg. So their specialism was studying oceans and what can and does happen in them. And they agreed with this Drews person, who said that if there is a strong wind, and this is what the Old Testament refers to, actually, I didn't read this out, but it said, well, no, I haven't noted it. But anyway, it is said that a strong wind, when Moses stretched out his hand, then a strong wind blew. But I didn't make a note of that. Never mind. So these two guys set about seeing if this could happen, and this could happen. And they went so far as to actually calculate the speed at which the wind has to blow to push the water back. So here it says they calculated that a wind blowing at the speed of 67 miles per hour, which is not very fast, sustained overnight, would have exposed a reef that existed close below the ocean surface. So what they're saying is not that water all the way to the bottom of the sea was pushed back. But what happened was a strong wind blew, pushed the water back, and the Israelites could see a reef, like a rock, under the surface of the water. And of course, the other thing they point out is that at that time, the rock would have been closer to the surface of the water. Because as we all know, what happens is that erosion takes place. We have the example of Grand Canyon in America, where there was a river flowing on top of a mountain made of very strong rocks. And over thousands of years, as it flew, it kept cutting and kept cutting and kept cutting. And now you got a canyon which is 2 miles deep. So, presumably, in several thousand years, the same thing has happened around that reef. That erosion has lowered the sea level. But anyway, it says, yes, it says closer to the water surface. So it would have been exposed for just the right amount of time. The distance is about 7 kilometers. They actually found the reef, and it's 7 kilometers from one end to the other. And it would have taken them 4 hours, the Israelites 4 hours to cross it. And then if the wind immediately stopped, it would have taken water half an hour to come back and cover the reef again. So that is a scientific explanation for what happened. And I thought because this is a common thing between Jews and Christians and Muslims, I thought it would be interesting. Well, I thought it would be interesting. Maybe thought it was completely boring. I shouldn't have bothered. Well, there we are. To include the Jewish perspective and a bit of the scientific perspective to see, to show you that scientists who specialize in climate and who specialize in oceanography and so on, they have found possible explanations that this could have actually happened. Well, our next broadcast is tomorrow at 7 p.m. And I leave you with a prayer that whoever you are and wherever you are, may Allah keep all of you safe and sound and free from harm. Assalamu alaikum. Khuda Hafiz. Goodbye.